G'day, folks. It is the coach. Welcome back to the Talking series. We are talking all things Cities of Sigmar. We're talking about the Allegiance that I'm playing currently at the moment, so I can't wait to talk to my guest. It is goddamn Gary. Goddamn Gary has got me up super early in the morning to record on a Saturday when my wife is in bed. But we are talking all things Tempest Eye. I can't wait to unpick Gary. Gary is an expert when it comes to Kharadron Overlords, which is the ally, or not even really the ally. It kind of gets brought into cities. So it's like this combo KO/Cities of Sigmar. And it's I love this book and I love this battle tome. Before we get there, Gary, you're straight out of England. You are well known on the Twitterverse and you are well known for playing quirky lists that some people may have taken to events and run very well. How are you, Gary?
I'm good. Thanks very much for having me. Yeah, all good.
Anything else I can introduce the world to? How did goddamn Gary even come about?
That was my mate Danny, and people had a habit of leaving WhatsApp chats after I started saying anything. So every time someone left, everyone just started saying, "God damn it, Gary," because someone else had left the WhatsApp chat. So it kind of stuck. It's usually followed by about 3 or 4 exclamation marks as well.
God damn it. All right, well, it is good to have you here. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. I've been playing around with a whole bunch of variants to the list, and I'd love to compare notes around how you're running them and how you're playing with them, and finding how you're tapping into the strengths of the book, and being very fortunate to send me a couple of lists as well that we'll kind of base our discussion around. But before we got in there, how did you get into this game? How did you get into Warhammer Age of Sigmar?
Age of Sigmar was supposed to be a distraction for 6 months while I was waiting for 8th edition 40k to drop. Because I didn't really like 7th edition. I've been playing 40k for 20-something years, since like Rogue Trader. Age of Sigmar had kind of come about. I wasn't really a fantasy player. It kind of looked kind of cool because it was on a circular basis. So I thought, while I wait for the new edition to drop for 40k, I'll just do something. Use my demons. I had a few demons, which obviously cross over. And
which demons, by the way?
I had Khorne demons. So yeah, when I first started Age of Sigmar, it was my Khorne kind of. It ended up being like the old mixed bloodletter bomb kind of. So just because I happened to have a load of Khorne stuff, and 8th edition dropped. Played a couple of games of it. I went, Sigmar's better. So I didn't play any 8th edition, and I've been playing Age of Sigmar ever since. Well,
hopefully when the 40k release gets announced tonight, if you are watching us live, hopefully it doesn't kind of lure you back. But it's interesting. We all have a different journey into the game, whether you're a fantasy player, whether you come from War Machine, or a bunch of people coming from Magic the Gathering. It's fascinating how people kind of find this hobby and how long they stay with us. So it's pretty awesome. So I guess the next question I've got is, why Cities of Sigmar? Why Tempest Eye? Like, what drew you to this particular battle tome? Because I know you are a long-term KO player, and you still are a KO player. So let's not acknowledge a pink elephant in the room. You haven't run away, but I think we kind of know what drew you to this part. But why Cities and why Tempest Eye?
Okay, well, it's kind of 2 parts. I mean, obviously, I picked up the book because it's got KO in it, and it's a new way of using your old models. So, and at the time, KO weren't in the best of positions because this was a good.
They had a whole bunch of changes to their books, whether it's you couldn't put all the skyhooks into an Arcanaut company, and they obviously had a lot of changes.
Yeah, exactly. And this was a good 6 months before the new book came out, so it was just another way of using my KO. So I picked it up to have a little look. But when I did pick it up, I'll go on record and say it's probably the best book GW have done for Age of Sigmar. I will say that. Just yes, I know it does look like a bit like a dumping ground for old kits, but with the things like Sylvaneth being able to be drawn in, Stormcast, KO, all these kind of things, and there's so many fresh ways you can look at it. You can pick up the book and make a different list every time you read it. So for someone who likes tinkering with lists, I doodle lists. So some people might draw funny rabbits and whatever when they're kind of bored. I'll sit there and memorize points costs, and my doodle pads will be filled with like points costs going up to 2,000 points, and the cities list cities army book is just amazing for that. You can tinker, and I am one of nature's natural tinkerers.
Look, to be honest with you, it's my favorite book they've ever put out. Not because I'm a long-term Empire player who brought his fantasy army over into Age of Sigmar, but because of the amount of stories and lore that sit in the book. The world building with maps, and obviously Soulbound has kind of added additional layer, especially if you're playing in one of the Axii cities, such as Tempest Eye. I've absolutely kind of smashed and consumed that lore to kind of get even more knowledge about Tempest Eye, Hallowheart, Anvilguard, which has been brilliant. But also, to me, the conversion opportunity, just seeing how many people have just gone absolutely mental converting, bringing high elf kits and old kits and green stuffing and kit bashing. Like I'm currently kind of, pardon?
Just look at Vince's.
And then you got people, Vinces, who are drawing things from the 40k world, the AdMech stuff that's coming out soon, like the horses and the flying dudes. There's just so much conversion opportunity when you want to bring that into your cities. But it's a great book. And Tempest Eye, for me, I really like the rules. And we'll get to the rules in a minute. But funnily enough, I actually used to play a lot of Tempest Eye when it was the Firestorm Allegiance, where everyone just got +4. No, it was +2 movement for foot troops and +4 movement for flying troops. So that was kind of, I really liked the idea of, hey, +4 movement. I was going to move all my Griffins, and I think I was running 2 Griffins at the time. So I'm like, sweet, I'm going to run those Griffins an extra 4 inches.
I think you could do the old. They went to Legacy or Legend, whatever it was, but it was the old high elf. What was it?
The Dragon Battalion.
No, the tiny fly little. What are they called? They're on like a little Griffin, not a big Griffin, but like a tiny little high elf Griffin. They were mental in the old. Don't you not remember? They're like tiny little high elf Griffin, dude. That quarter of the size of the Empire one. It's gone now, but you could use those in Tempest Eye, and they were nuts. They were like movement 23, turn 1.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Hide in 6 inches. Yeah. I played.
All right, we're talking to 2 long-term Tempest Eye players here, but we are going to talk about the real Tempest Eye, and it's a cool army and it's a cool story. It's cool, but I'm gonna try to stop saying cool, and I'm going to ask you. So generally, very high level, what are the strengths of Tempest Eye as opposed to the other cities that are available in Cities of Sigmar?
Well, first thing I would say is the KO. This KO element does bring obviously quite a bit of firepower to an already fairly firepower-based book, if you want it. And with the way that they work with the 1 in 4, very much like the rest of the book, it means you can quite easily get like a power pair of KO stuff. So you can bring a boat and some guys to hitch on with it. Or you can bring a chemist and a big unit of something. So you've got enough play to do some power pairing. So that's quite a big thing. But the massive thing is the turn 1. Your turn 1, whether going first or second, or even it doesn't even matter if you are going first or second. Your turn 1, your opponent's turn, and your opponent's turn is just huge. And obviously, a lot of games are, whether you like it or not, won in the first turn. Be that out positional, blunting attacks, alpha strikes, all these kind of things, beta strikes, the lot. Turn 1 is usually where the tempo of the game is dictated, and Tempest Eye have massive buffs in that first turn.
Yeah. I think the fact that you're going to get Cities of Sigmar book, then you're allowed, and I might bring up the rules here now at this particular point, but you're able to get the Cities of Sigmar book. You're going to get access to the Stormcast book, so 1 in every 4 units can be Stormcast. That is Cities of Sigmar generally. Then specific to Tempest Eye, 1 in every 4 can be Courage and Overlord. So you essentially have 3 books you can pull from to build your army, in addition to your ally pool, which is mental. That is crazy. And I think that is the strength of the book, that you get access to literally almost anything in 3 battle tones, and it's not restricted, right? You're not restricted to points. So if you want to bring in one of the big boats, you want to bring a Star Drake, you can tap into something that's quite expensive. And then at the same time, you've got your allies to pull from. So that's pretty crazy.
Exactly, and you can bring in things like Deepkin as well. As you say, through just generic allies. So you can get quite an eclectic looking list if you really, really want to.
So I've pulled up the allegiance rules. So I might just get, for anyone who's watched this series in the past, you already know what these things do. For people who are tuning in for the first time who haven't really kind of got a crack understanding of Cities of Sigmar, I'm going to go very quickly over the high level rules. I'd love your overview on what this means to you. So first things first, you get the strongholds of order, which basically means you get a sub-allegiance. So you get to pick Hammerhall, Living City, Greywater. Obviously, we're talking about Tempest Eye here, so we're not going to kind of go too deep in here. But it does mean that you can pick up your models and, next month run a tournament and play in a tournament and be at Anvil Guard. And the army that you're currently playing here is going to function very differently in Hammerhall to Anvil Guard to Tempest Eye to Hallowheart. So you get a wonderful variety of play styles just by simply switching your allegiance. And I don't think any other book does that. Like, you can change your enclaves, you can change your temples, you can change other things in different armies, and it doesn't affect it nearly as much as what these cities do. So big win for us. You got the amplified endless spell. So basically, when your spell successfully casts an endless spell, and it has the rules empowered by the realm, so Akshi or Shaman or Gur or Gairan, you get something extra. So maybe I'll drill into this one with you. What does that mean for you when you're building a list and you get this empowered by the realms? How does this influence your list design?
Well, in cities, quite a lot actually. Less now, because I am trying to stop myself using it unless I absolutely have to. With the age of Slan doing board wide dispels and probably Techless being able to pull some shenanigans, I'm guessing there is more and more pitfalls to having your entire game plan revolve around a spell. But saying that, things like mirrors, bridge, they're all very, very powerful pieces if you can, especially empowered. The bridge is nuts when you empower. I'm sure you've
the Soul Screen Bridge you're talking about here.
Yeah, the Soul Screen Bridge, exactly. Yeah, it's absolutely nuts in cities. If it gets off, it is literally just game winning if you can do it properly.
So basically, what if you haven't played with endless spells, and funnily enough, I'm like you, I'm actually pulling back a lot. My Tempest Eye list specifically has no endless spells, and some of my most recent lists have only really had one, which was like the Emerald Life Swarm. But basically, you're going to get extra benefits by taking an endless spell. So if somebody casts, if someone else outside of Cities of Sigmar was to cast, let's say, Emerald Life Swarm, what happens is you're going to be able to heal or bring back D3 models. With us, it's D6. With something like the shackles, they force you to set up the first shackle, and then it's within 6 inches of each other. While in Cities of Sigmar, it's 9. Bridges, I think it's like, it's restricted 12. You might get 24. But basically, if you look at the War Scroll, there's a little section that says empowered by the realms. If it says that, it does mean you're going to get extra benefits that would normally mean you would have to specifically say, I'm playing in the realm of Akshi. You're going to get this for all of your endless spells, which is pretty neat.
Exactly.
Good for like your damage dealing, like your gem energy, you get a reroll there, and there's some cool stuff. But basically, you're going to get more from your endless spells than other people are going to get.
Way more bang for your buck, yeah.
Yeah. Next thing is what's going to happen is you are stuck to a realm. So specifically, Tempest Eye is stuck to Akshi. Why is that? Is because that's literally where the city is. You can't choose Gairan. You can't choose, Hish or Shaiish or Shimon. Akshi is where the city is. So what does that mean for you, Gary, when it comes to whether it's artifact selection or anything else when it comes to Tempest Eye being in Akshi?
It's actually quite good, actually, because I think the best item in the book is in Realm of Fire, which is the Thermal Rider Cloak. I literally take it in every list I've ever had, or at least looked at, had a long, hard look to see why I shouldn't put it in. But yeah, I'd say 90% of my lists have the Thermal Rider Cloak in it.
So what it means, team, is that you can only choose artifacts from Alliance Sorcery from the realm of Akshi. And so I think, there's Ignac Scales and Thermal Rider Cloak are the two of the most popular ones that you're going to probably pull out. So just something to consider. I've seen some people asking, can I Tempest Eye be from Shamal? And I'm like, well, if you're playing a narrative game, yes. But if you're playing in a match play tournament, no. Warriors of the Realm locks you into Akshi. Next thing is you're going to be able to get these honored retinue. So basically, if your general has a wound characteristic of 6 or less, you can pick a friendly unit to be the retinue, and that unit has to be either between 5 and 20 models. Basically, what happens if you do have a general that has 6 wounds or less, and you've got basically you get this thing called the loyal shield. So basically, you roll a die. Basically, you're able to palm off mortal wounds. So if your general is within 3 inches of that honored retinue, on a 4+, they can part off wounds and mortal wounds to the unit instead. Again, how does that kind of come into your list design? I know. Recently in my Tempest Eye, I'm not even taking a general with 6 wounds or less. I've got more of a beat stick monster. But how do you see that rule?
I mean, it must be the same. A lot of the time, especially in Tempest Eye specifically, the general tends to be very useful when it has a big base. There's a lot of AoE kind of auras for having a general with a command trait. So these work better on big things. So it doesn't happen often. I mean, I have been playing about with assassin generals, which is quite an interesting one. So you can actually have an assassin pop out of its own retinue and automatically be within range for doing things like that. But generally, it's usually like a Hurricanum or a General Griffin, things like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've both kind of come to the same conclusion here. So in my Hallow Heart, for example, I have like my Anointed, which is my general. There's a couple of reasons I've got the Anointed as a general or a Battle Mage or, the Knight Incantor. I know a lot of people choose a Knight Incantor to be their general. But in Tempest Eye, you're 100% correct. I'm currently leading into the Black Dragon, the Dreadlord on Black Dragon. I see a lot of people running either the Free Guild General or they're running the Frost Phoenix. And part of the reason when we get to it in a minute, team, is that there is a whole bunch of really cool abilities that come from either a command trait or an allegiance that you probably want to tap into that's going to run with your force. So I personally struggle to choose a 6-wound character 6 wound or less character for my retinue. That's not to say that it can't be done.
No, I mean, there is definitely play in there. I mean, it's one of the strengths of the books. Just because something's good doesn't mean it's the only route to success.
In saying that, I will challenge myself in saying that I'm currently working on a Greywater Fastness style army. So basically war machines in Tempest Eye. I have this crack theory that you can do like a war machine Greywater Fastness army better in Tempest Eye. So I've been thinking about putting my Lord Ordinator or my my Rune Lord or my engineer, what are they called, Cogsmiths, as the general, because they're going to sit behind the lines with my rocket batteries and with my my Hurricanum. So there is some use, but in most Tempest Eye lists, you're probably going to find that's not as important.
Yeah.
Which also then kind of ties into the next part, is that if you do choose that general that's got 6 wounds or less, you're going to get your Wise Counsel. But so basically, you get an extra command point on a 4+ if they're within 3 inches of their little homie. And then we've talked about the Storm Keys. So 1 in every 4 can be Stormcast. And then the beautiful thing is in Tempest Eye, 1 in every 4 can be KO. So, I mean, the options are just incredible when you look at KO, right? I'm personally in love with the Gun Hauler. If you really wanted to go into the other bigger ships, you could go down that route. But
you can take double Ironclad. Just saying.
You can take a double Ironclad, and that's pretty mental because they're pretty crazy. Anything else you want to talk about specifically about cities, or we'll kind of dig a little deeper into Tempest Eye?
They don't generally use a lot of the rules.
No, I found that. I'm ignoring half the rules in Tempest Eye. In a Hallow Heart, I wasn't, but in Tempest Eye, I'm kind of ignoring a lot of it.
Yeah, it's if it happens, it's nice, but it's not key to the list building process.
No, it's actually kind of opposite. Actually, I've kind of ignored it because I feel like if I try to take advantage of the honored retinue, if I try to take advantage of the wise council, I'm almost losing what I'm trying to build. Again, I talked about that war machine build. That's kind of like a one-off. That in most cases, I'm ignoring it. All right, let's get into the juicy stuff. Let's talk about Tempest Eye and why we're kind of ignoring the core rules that come for Cities of Sigmar. So we mentioned earlier we are locked into Akshi, so we've acknowledged Thermal Rider Cloak and Ignax Scales, two of the many great artifacts that sit in this particular book. Here comes the good stuff. It's the stuff that I really like. First things first is you get to add 3 movement characteristic to friendly Tempest Eye units until the end of the first battle round. In addition, add 1 to the save roll for attacks made basically against Tempest Eye. So we basically get 3-inch movement plus 1 armor save for the first battle round. Is that a good ability? And what does that mean to you?
Hells yes, that's a good ability. That is
why? Why?
Tempest Eye meat and potatoes. That is because it's plus 1 to your save rolls. It's not cover or anything. So it's plus 1 to your save rolls. So if you get cover as well, that's plus 2. So you can bunker down, and your drops are not unimportant, but they're not. It's not as critical getting these low drops. You can just sit there and go, do you know what? I'll just sit here, knowing that I'm fast, and I'll just bunker up in a bit of cover. And turn 1, you can throw pretty much most things at me, and I'll be pretty tanky. It will blunt a lot of people's, alpha strikes with careful positioning, and they can't even, if you build your army right, they can't even do the opposite and kind of sit back and kind of go, oh, I'll just wait. I'll wait until all that kind of armor save stuff comes off and let you come to me, because you can come to them with your plus 3 move and your KO and your Epistle Ears and all these things that kind of make your army very, very fast. It creates a very uneven footing to your benefit on turn 1. That if you're doing it right, they feel they can't go against you, and they're feeling that they can't stay away from you either. They're kind of damned if they do and damned if they don't.
Yeah, for me, I've noticed with my interaction with my opponents, they've been really interesting because if they give me first turn, I have the speed to basically take up half the board space or more and sit there and take a hit because I've got that plus 1 save. So I can start scoring objectives early. I can take the hit because I've got a better armor save. But in turn, if they take the first turn, especially if you're building around things like flyers, you're going to be able to kind of jump over screens and kind of, swerve and manipulate the board as opposed to being stuck in the middle trying to fight your way through it. So, and then obviously you got your shenanigans like your KO flying high, your Shadow Warriors dropping from different parts of the board. That and like where the penny kind of dropped for me was when I looked at some of my units. So I've kind of moved towards some Order Serpentis things recently. So I've got a Dreadlord on Black Dragon. I have Drakespawn Knights, and when the penny dropped for me, my Drakespawn Knights have a 3-up or a 2-up armor save. My Dreadlord has a 2-up armor save in the first battle round. My Knight Incantor has a 2+ armor save in the first battle round. My Phoenix Guard have a 3-up armor save with a 4-up after save. So a 3-up save and a 4-up after save. Like that's like crazy. That's OBR level crazy stuff. So like when you think about resilience and the fact that like a dragon or a phoenix or a griffin who normally has a base of like a 14-inch or a kind of 16-inch move, add 3 and you're basically at 40. So for 40, 20. Guys, sorry, it is 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm losing my mind on a Saturday. But you've got a 20-inch move, let alone kind of like any running or any other shenanigans. So and that's just first turn.
And then you can do weird things like you can take your Star Drake and you can take a Heraldor as well. Just for do you know what? I move my move plus 3 and I can run and charge. There's so many. I think there's like 120 different unit choices Tempest Eye can take, or something like that. There are so many little things and power pairs that you can throw into this and still get the allegiance abilities. It's ridiculous.
So first up, 3-inch move. You get a free additional 3-inch move for the first battle round, +1 armor save. Cool. Sounds pretty sexy already. Second one, you get to add 1 to the run roll for friendly Tempest Eye. By the way, guys, if you take Stormcast or you take KO, they gain this keyword as well. So they're going to get Tempest Eye. So your Stormcast and your KO are going to get all of these abilities too. So we +1 to the run roll. What does that mean? Or how do you tap into that?
Well, again, the thing I said earlier, you can take Heraldors, you can take the Stormcast stuff, you can give them run +1 and still charge later. You can extend these threat ranges. You can push out, as you say, like turn 1, if you've got the first turn, onto these objectives while still being reasonably tanky. There's other things that you can start kind of working into lists as well that can take into the fact that you can run and charge in certain kind of scenarios with certain units as well. So it's just giving massive threat ranges. In fact, even their own innate battle traits let you run and shoot in certain circumstances as well. So it's again just extending threat ranges. It's letting you put things at a certain level away from your enemy and going, doesn't matter who gets the priority this turn, I can get you and you can't get me. And you're just doing this kind of face-off with this superior range almost all the time.
In addition to that, a couple of things that I'll call out is, my general, I've been taking Swift as the Wind recently. So what it means is it allows my general to run and charge. So again, let's put this into like my army. My Dreadlord moves 14 or 16, whatever it is. Let's say it's 14 for now. Please don't at me if it's 16. But let's say it's 14, right? I get +3 to the move, so 14 becomes 17. Then if I run, I get +1, so I'm at 18, plus my D6, that could be anywhere between 1 and 6. And I can still charge.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty, and again, it's not just characters. You can take in other units to kind of benefit from these things as well. You can get Death Star units of, I don't know, Drake Riders for Stormcast as well, or Riggers, all these kind of things that you can kind of work in other synergies. It's just yet another thing on the kind of massive list of things that you can do with them that just makes their speed so good. Their speed and threat ranges are basically what win you your games. And there's a multitude of ways of shoehorning different buffs into it.
Outriders of the Realm then ties into the command ability, which is you can use the command ability in your shooting phase. If you do so, pick one friendly Tempest Eye unit that's wholly within 12 of the Tempest Eye hero. That unit can shoot even if it ran. So then, I get +1 to my run. And then if I activate the command ability, it's going to allow me to then run and shoot. And then I know you've got some juicy stuff to talk about where you can then kind of tap into that even more. But again, we've got these fast units. We're taking up the board space, whether it's Epistle Ears, Outriders, Sisters of the Thorn. And there's a lot of shooting units you can tap into.
Gyrocopters, that's what I use in one of my lists.
Yep. Yeah.
Three gyrocopters, which can, run up the table and then just get all their 8-inch steam guns in range of like blobs of 20-something or 40-somethings. And just literally go, okay, take 60 hits.
And by the way, as Brian's pointed out as well, yes, the other benefit that I get out of my general's command trait is that he does fight at the start of combat. So Swift as the Wind is my absolute favorite. I can't walk away with that now, unless I'm going in a crazy, stupid shooting build. So I think we're really we're really blessed with both Hawkeye and Swift as the Wind because they're both really sweet command traits. Swift as Hawkeye is going to give you benefits to your shooting. Swift as a Wind is going to give you some benefits if you want to do more of a combat kind of beat stick. So whichever way you want to go, you've got a really solid command trait.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add to Tempest Eye? I mean, it's brilliant. It's just how you want to then tap into the shooting or the combat and speed.
Well, as I say, like there's 120 unit choices you could choose for Tempest Eye. Literally 90 minutes of show, you could probably not even scratch half of what you could do with it. But those tools that you get are immensely satisfying to use in a multitude of different ways with, a dozen different scrolls. It's
so I think, and I think that's the beauty of this book as well, is that it does have a lot of options, but then you get stuck, running around in circles just trying to build lists. And I think this is the one battle tome that I keep going in a loop. When I built my Gits, when I built my Legion of Night, when I built all my other armies, I've kind of found my list. I've been really happy. But this, I'm just constantly spinning and spinning and spinning because I'm also just I'm just kind of, I'm always looking for something better. Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm always in analysis paralysis. So,
but for me, that's perfect. I love that. That literally keeps the hobby fresh. This book alone almost keeps my hobby fresh, all on its own.
All right, well, let's get into one of your lists. So Gary has been very kind to give me a couple of his lists, and I want to we've talked about the allegiance ability. I want to kind of bring this into some thoughts and go, right, well, we've talked about the +1 armor save, the +3 movement. We've talked about the KO component and the Stormcast component, and how do we bring these rules to life? So you've given me a couple of lists. And I want to kind of put the methodology into practice. Like, how does this come to life? So the first list I've got here is, again, obviously we're talking about Tempest Eye. We're starting off with a Hurricanum with the Thermal Rider Cloak and the spell Strike of Eagles. So talk me through the methodology. Why are we choosing this? What does this mean to my army, et cetera, et cetera?
Hurricanum's almost standard in most of my Tempest Eye lists. And by default, my play style and Tempest Eye tend to kind of move to the shooting kind of element. I mean, I'll have combat options, but I'm not done what you've done, which is maybe make combat-orientated armies. They tend to be shooting. And Hurricanums, when you come to shooting, are just forget about it. Especially when you add in the Thermal Rider Cloak, so you can keep those buffs, ticking for longer. You can keep up with the fast elements of the army. Like you can see at the bottom there, you can see the Pistoliers. You can keep that +1 to hit on those Pistoliers for much longer by keeping up with them. The Strike of Eagles is much. The spells, I must admit, are probably one of the weaker points of the. One of them's really good, but they're not the end of the world when it comes to spells. So I like Strike of Eagles just for an extra little bit of long range poke.
So Strike of Eagles is basically you cast it on a 7. If you successfully cast it, you pick one unit within 30, and then you roll 6 dice. Each 4 up is a mortal wound. Yeah. So you're probably on average you're doing 3 mortal wounds. But the 30-inch threat range is nice and juicy.
Quite nice because you can throw that in with the Hurricanum's innate shooting attack as well, which does mortal wounds, and suddenly there's that quite targeted mortal wound output at quite a decent range. That specific, I don't know, slan character.
I was literally going to say Lord Croak sitting in the back with his little Lily's Balewind Vortex. You can pop him like it's hot.
Yeah, he's like, well, F you completely. There you go. Take all the mortal wounds that I can throw at you in a turn. There you go. He's just a very good piece for Tempest Eye generally.
Thermal Rider Cloak's obviously allowing one of the benefits for me with Thermal Rider Cloak, and I kind of tap into this in my Halo Heart list as well, is that I found that my Thermal Rider Cloak, my Hurricanum would often get clogged up on the board by the general bodies on the table. So being able to fly that Hurricanum and give it +4 move just gave it so much versatility and gave you so many more options for that Storm of Shemtech mortal wounds that you're dealing out.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, obviously, the +1 to hit aura for whatever you're trying to buff. Next up, you've got. Well, I'll jump to your general. So you got the Sorceress, which is a general, and the reason I'm jumping to the general is because then you've got the Battle Mage from Hysh, which has got the Adjutant. So we do have the Adjutant. We can kind of tap into some extra CP. So, and I've seen people choosing double Sorceress. So maybe why the Sorceress and the Battle Mage combo?
It's mainly because things are getting more difficult to cast now. Again, we're talking about, these things are just getting a little bit more tricky to cast. So if you want spells to go off, the Sorceress is a pretty good way of doing that, just because you can do a sacrifice and then +3.
So basically, she stabs some of those dark shards, and she gets +2 to the cast.
Exactly, yeah. And she's got quite a nice innate spell, which is -1 to hit. I believe that's you can mess about with that combined with Hish as well. Hish is a -1 to hit spell as well, so you can go around just making blobs of things like, well, not even blobs, but you can give like -2 to hit around the place and just kind of play that kind of longevity game a little bit more. Again, it's not critical that she's the general. You could very easily make Hurricaneum general and do the kind of roving AoE buff kind of thing that you'd normally do. But I do like the idea of trying to use the innate abilities that the cities do offer with the adjutant and the general on foot using the Honoured Retinue.
One other spell. So your battle mage, you can basically, when you choose a battle mage, you get to choose which realm he's from. So, or her. You choose the battle mage, and it's not locked to Akshi. So good news, you can choose whichever one of the 8. So you're not realm locked with this particular sorceress. If that confuses you, I hope it doesn't. But I know one other one that I really like in Tempest Eye is the Gur one.
Gur one, yeah.
So the Gur one's going to give you +2 to movement. So +2 to charge and run rolls. So that's a nice little tasty combo if you want to even just get up even further.
Yeah, that's again what we were saying earlier. It's like all these extra things. There's things you can piece together to give quite silly threat ranges if you really, really want to. It's also a really good one for when you're using the bridge because of the +2 charge. Most city stuff, if you've got a banner, most of the time, if not all the time, it's +1 to charge for the banner. I believe. Don't at me. So,
I think it's the musician that does it, but same thing, same.
The same thing, yeah. But most units, their command model, one of their command models gives them +1. So you're already sitting there at like a 6-inch charge range after being teleported, which is sufficient. It's good enough to plan around getting charges off with things like that.
Anything else you want to add to that? I know one other call out is the battle mage obviously combines really well with the Hurricaneum because the Hurricaneum is going to give it +1 to the cast while it's in its aura, while the Hurricaneum doesn't give the sorceress because it's only for collegiate arcane. So your battle mage on Griffin and your battle mage on foot. They're the 2 things that will benefit from the Hurricaneum's +1 to cast.
But that gives you quite a solid core of reliable magic. And again, I think that's becoming more and more needed. I think you either need to have a plan for not having clutch spells, or if you do have clutch spells and it is a part of your battle plan, making sure you've got reliable buffs to casting. Otherwise, it's probably not worth even trying.
And in some armies, you might be making sure that you're deploying outside of 30. So you can get that, at least that first one. Nothing's worse than I've seen a few times with my opponents. Their strategy has been turn 1 bridge, but I've made sure to have like a Knight Incantor sitting there. So you just auto unbind 1 spell a game. And as long as that Incantor is within 30, I can stop that. So keep that in mind. If you are building, because we are moving into this magical supremacy of craziness between Crowe and Lords of Changes and the Gashes, and only imagine what Teclis is going to do when he drops on the table.
Exactly.
So building around magic might not be the right strategy. But I can see we've got a nice little combination forming here between the sorceress, who is the general. We have the battle mage, which is the adjutant. And then we also have the dark shard, which is the honored retinue. So 1, they're little stabbies. They're going to give the sorceress +2 to the cast. But 2, we're going to be able to pass off those wounds and mortal wounds that target the sorceress, so long as they stay within 3 of the sorceress.
Yeah, and they're cheap enough to with the sorceress as general, they become battle line. So you don't have to kind of like take a 10 dark shards unit outside of the usual battle line requirements, and they're quite cheap. Again, if the Hurricaneum's nearby, they're actually fairly accurate. They're not bad for 100 points with kind of the almost inconsequential buffs that you're getting because you want them elsewhere really, but they kind of happen to pick them up just by by being there. So it's quite a nice little. I quite liked it, and you don't see the dark elf stuff a lot. So.
No, you don't, and most of that dark elf kind of aesthetic, the scourge privateers, the darkling covens, they normally kind of find their home in Anvilgard. Not to say that that's the only place you can use them, and here's clearly an example. And the Sorcerers is becoming more and more popular, I'm noticing, especially with that +2 to cast.
Yeah.
Next up, you've got another unit of Dark Shards. Why another unit of Dark Shards? Is that just cheap battle line? Is that more stabby to get +2 to cast, or?
Yeah, it's just cheap battle line. It's just playing the what's the word? When I can't think of the word. It's too late here. Redundancy. That's the word.
Yeah.
So you've got 2 units that you can stab if one dies, and the 2 units that are doing battle line kind of stuff. Why not? You could put in guard, like for some free guild guard, why not? But just in case 10 get lifted off, you've still got another 10 to stab and still be casting your spells.
Yeah, so you could take a cheap battle line, whether it's flagellants, you could take some free guild guard, but I guess for that extra 20 points, you're going to be able to stab them with the Sorceress in order to get a +2 cast. Should that other Dark Shard unit disappear? So I guess for 20 points, it's almost like a double use as opposed to just free guild guard, which are useless in this particular build.
Yeah, and it's more shooting if you really, really want to. And as I say, with +1 to hit, they're not actually that bad. They are a significant enough threat to threaten other kind of 10-man chaff units and things like that.
I'm looking forward to this discussion. The next part is the Epistle Ears, which are things that you don't normally see in other parts of Cities of Sigmar. I don't think I've seen many, if any, other cities taking Epistle Ears. So we've seen some tournament armies that base themselves entirely around Epistle Ears. You've got a big block of 15. So why do you take Epistle Ears? Why not Outriders? What does this unit of 15 Epistle Ears bring to the table in your army? Because 300 points is a big block. That could be 20 Phoenix Guard. That could be, a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, basically, Epistle Ears just take every single buff that the army gives and just uses it so well.
Yeah.
I mean, they're quite short range, but they're so fast. And then on top of that, you get the +3 move at the beginning of the game. They're reasonably tanky and obviously made more tanky by, first turn. You can have them up on a 3-up saving cover turn 1, so they're not really going to be lifted. They can screen. They can. You can use command point to make them run and shoot. Sorry. But the reason I really like them is because they work in all phases of the game. Obviously by the hero phase. They can move. They can shoot, and they can fight. And you can do some quite nice techie stuff with the fight phase because they get to shoot when they charge. That's kind of their fighting. And obviously, if you can get the Hurricaneum in range when they're doing that kind of charge phase shoot, you're getting +1 to hit. If you can get like all these other buffs to reroll 1s from command points, all these kind of things. You can do all these kind of techie things with them, and they just suck all the buffs that you can throw at them so well.
I know in a previous list, while you take a sip of your drink, I had taken a Frost Lord on an Anointed on a Frost Phoenix, and I'd given them the Hawkeye trait. So basically, models within 12 inches of it will get +1. So +1 to their wound rolls for missile weapons. So all of a sudden, you're really bringing down, and like if you had that Frost Phoenix along with the 15 Epistle Ears, and let's say you didn't run them, right? So you just standard move for them so they could shoot if they were in 9 inches, and then when they charge, they also get to shoot on the charge. With the Hurricaneum, with the Hawkeye, I think they were hitting on 2s and 2s, and they've got like two shots apiece, so you're like double shooting. Which is some pretty strong numbers, let alone applying a reroll 1s to hit from a command trait. So it's pretty tasty.
It's pretty tasty. I mean, and the thing is, because they're shooting, I keep saying shooting, because their charge shoot is only dependent on them having charged and being in range. You don't have to be in combat or anything. Not every single one of those models has to be within 1 inch or 2 inches or whatever. You just need one. So you can end up doing these kind of weird little kind of funnel kind of formations where you get them all in 9 and maybe one of them's touching. So even the return attacks back from whatever you charge to try and shoot isn't actually getting that many in range. So they're not actually dying that easy because they're only getting very few attacks into the unit on the return. And the next turn you can just retreat out and go off and do your thing. It's because they Pistol Ears have got some kind of benefit with that as well, especially in the again, I'm talking generalities here. Sorry, like the battalion has got a benefit of like retreating out of combat as well. So Pistol Ears just I put 15 in this because I used an army when I was using 55 of them, and I just loved them so much that I had to put 15 in just because they work so well as kind of workhorses. Ironically, they just do everything if you need them to, and 300 points isn't actually that much if you think about it for what they do. So if you lose them, it's not crippling.
I was running a block of 10. I didn't think of going 15. I mean, I had 15 on the table, but I had a 10 and a 5. But I think what you're hearing, folks, is that Pistol Ears are a good choice if you haven't revisited them, especially in Tempest Eye. They're a nice little harassing unit if you want to have them on the flanks and just annoy people and shoot them. And if they charge them, who cares? It's 100 points of Pistol Ears. But there's also some really nice combinations you can do if you want to make them a nice hammer unit. So something maybe you want to reconsider. You've got 2 units of Ironclads. Now, these are our big boats. These aren't the middle boats, the small boats. I've been going the gun haulers, the small boats. You've gone the other way, which is the extremes. You've gone these 2 big Ironclads. They're 500 points apiece. And you've got the Athematic volley cannon as the main gun. Yeah. So why are you putting like half of your army points into 2 boats? Because that's a big question, right? That's a half of an army. Why are you bringing them to the table? What does it bring that something else couldn't bring? Talk me through this.
Just because Ironclads are cool. But no, they have got a lot of shots. There is, I mean, when the KO book dropped, I did look at the points cost and I was like, that's a lot of points. Does it warrant it? And after using them quite a lot, admittedly in KO armies, I was sticking one in every single list. And I was thinking, well, stick them in cities because you can get the Hurricane buff. Like they're hitting reasonably well anyway. Suddenly a Hurricane buff and they're hitting very reliably with a lot of shots at a very long range. And they've also got this amazing maneuverability to go around the table to where the shots are needed. I mean, yes, they might not be in the range of the Hurricane anymore, but it's still, if you could be anywhere, your opponent has to cover everywhere. They have to cover every angle. They can't leave an objective unguarded because you can just lift the boat up and drop it on it. They can't, they've even got like a passable combat as well, because they can do multiple wounds on the charge as well. And they've got lots of reasonable attacks and quite tanky. You could even use them as kind of combat threats or at the very least speed bumps. I mean, just charge into big blocks of stuff. You won't die. And you can just sit there shooting at them while you're in combat with them and they're not doing much to you, while the rest of your army uses superior speed to go around and claim objectives and killing key pieces. But yeah,
one of the... Oh, go on. No, I was just going to say one of the rules that really is attractive for any of the KO boats and why I take the gun hauler as opposed to the Ironclad is they've got a rule that you're looking for called Sky High, which basically allows you to pick up the model at the start of the movement phase and reposition it anywhere on the board as long as it's outside of 9. So it's very similar to like the Shadow Warrior, except you're not putting them in reserve. So to what you're saying, Gary, you can literally and I've seen this used so often or so successfully, is that if the battle, you're starting to lose the battle on one part of the board, or if someone kind of moves off an objective, you can literally pick up your boat and reposition it, even if it was in combat, which is a very, very great or tasty option. And then, you just drop down and just absolutely blast the hell out of them with the millions of shots, especially the bigger the boat, the more shots that it has.
Yeah. The other slight thing that is underused, even in KO armies, is the fact that when you fly high, it is a setup and it's not obviously a retreat. So you come out of combat and you can go somewhere and you can still shoot. But they do have a genuine retreat esque move as well, which has no stipulation about distance. So you can just, if you've got enough wounds left, because that is one of the stipulations on the War Scroll, which is if you've got enough wounds, you can just retreat and still shoot. And obviously that means you could just come to the minimum 3 inches because you're not flying high. You're just literally physically moving away. You can use them as bait. You can use them as bait. You can use them as screens if you really need to, especially turn 1. When they're going to be sitting there on a 2-up armor save with 1 billion wounds, you can throw them into big combat blocks and make that combat block -2 to hit with all the spells that you've got in the rest of the list, and just really use them as kind of bulwarks for the rest of your army, which then just takes a tiny tiptoe out of combat and then blasts you, and then you kind of put in a position where you can't, well, I've got to charge them again now because they're still on the objective and still at -2 to hit and all these kind of things. And by the time they've spent so many resources trying to kill this boat, you've won the game on objectives or killed key pieces, which make the enemy kind of battle plan crumble. You can do so many things with them. The fact that they are not just bound by that fly high ability.
Yeah. Can the Ironclads take balloon boys, your engine riggers and your sky wardens?
What? Transport them? Yeah. With the the kind of hitching rule, yes.
Yeah, and I wanted to make that point because I've seen a little bit of confusion with cities players. So you can't take the garrisoning, so you can't take a bunch of Arcanaut company and put them in the boat. But what you can tap into is that anyone with a balloon, so your sky wardens, your engine riggers, or any of those characters with a balloon, and they can hitch on as well. So that's going to allow you to, if for someone like me who's taking a gun hauler. One gun haul at 150 points is not enough, but I can put some, engine riggers or some sky wardens to go with the boat, transport it, and increase the firepower. Or you can kind of just do what Gary's doing and just put all your eggs in like a 500-point boat and just go all or nothing, which is not a bad strategy, actually. I'm now looking at this going, well, for an extra 100, 150 odd points, I could just go complete ironclad. So but it's cool that, if you were stuck for points, you can go back to a gun hauler and get the light version of this.
And I don't know if we're going to touch on it later, but in case we don't.
We can talk about it.
Yeah. The gun haulers, the battalion, because obviously everyone only has 1 battalion for each city. The battalion for Tempest Eye has 2 gun haulers in it. If you want it, optional gun haulers. So I've played about with that as well. Gun haulers are really, really good. For 150 points, as you were saying, that they're massively, massively underrated, I think. And you can have a very low drop army with 2 of these in your army as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, just before I move on to the list, I just want to clarify and just make sure that we're all on the same page here. So with the garrisoning with the boats, my understanding is, and again, I'm not a KO expert here, so I love your insight. The garrisoning of, let's say, Arcanaut Company, that's based off the KO allegiance. So even though on the War Scroll it talks about garrisoning on your gun haulers and your ironclads, the only way you can do that with the Arcanaut Company is through KO allegiance. Is that correct?
I'd have to get my KO book, and I'll be completely honest. I've not looked at it in respect to cities because I hate Arcanauts. So I literally will never take them if I can possibly help it. And especially not in a cities list. So I've not actually looked at the interaction. But as you're saying that, it makes sense in my head. I would have to go check it. Because, a lot of the garrison stuff is in the allegiance ability, I believe. So that would make sense that, you wouldn't be able to garrison. I mean, yes, there is some rules on the boat itself. I mean, I can get my
No, that's fine. And if someone wants to clarify that for us and put it in the comments, that would be awesome. But I'm pretty sure from memory, when I was looking at these rules interactions, the garrisoning component comes from KO allegiance, which is why I couldn't garrison anything that wasn't essentially the balloon boys that were going to hitch a ride with the boat, which isn't a true garrison. So that was my understanding of that. And it's just good if someone's thinking about, well, maybe I want to take a bunch of ironclads and then fill it up with other KO that aren't with a balloon.
I'm having a look myself, and I must admit, if you look on the actual rules for ironclads, they've got flying transport. This one can fly and can be garrisoned by up to 25 marine models. So you could argue, if it appears in both the allegiance abilities and also the war scroll, you could argue that you can do it because it's on the war scroll itself.
Maybe something to clarify in the future.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding of the rule was the garrisoning came from the KO allegiance. But we won't kind of harp onto that. If people have other thoughts, again, put it in the comments. If someone's smarter than me from a KO perspective and has their rules in front of them, clarify.
Yeah, I won't lie. It's never come up in my list building because I just don't want to take Arkanauts in cities. So
fair call. All right. So anything that you want to talk about with this particular list, or do you want to go to your next version?
This was the fun list to make. I want to try this because it looks fun, but this probably isn't the cutting edge of Tempest Eye list building, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
it's just fun.
All right. Well, we've got one version. The next version we're going to show off is version 2. So we've got some commonality here. We've got the Celestial Hurricane with Thermal Rider Cloak, the Strike of the Eagles. We've talked about that already. Does some mortal wounds 30 inches away. Hurricane +1 a hit. Good stuff. It flies. It moves +4. Next thing you've got the Free Guild General on Griffin. Now he comes with the lance, or you've chosen the lance and shield. You've taken the command trait Hawkeye, and you've got the helm as the artifact. So you're taking this artifact from the Tempest Eye artifact selection. Yeah. So talk to me about why the Free Guild General and the combination that you've created.
Well, again, as with all cities lists, its role is chosen by the army as a whole. And obviously, if you scroll down, you can see that there is a shitload of Free Guild Pistoliers.
I wasn't gonna ruin Christmas. I wasn't gonna tell the children what was in the present. I was gonna let them salivate and open up the ribbon before we got there. All right. So for folks that aren't playing at home and listening to this on the podcast later, you are going to then come with a Knight of Zeros, 15 Pistoliers, 10 Pistoliers, 10 Pistoliers, 10 Pistoliers, 10 Pistoliers, and the Aether Guard Wind Riders, which is the Tempest Eye Battalion. All right. Let's wrap this. Let's wrap the present up for the kids and let them explore.
He is part 2. He is part 2 of the Pistolier Enabler. So you've got obviously the Hurricane with the +1. Now you're looking at Hawkeye, which is just going to, it was good to begin with, the Pistolier shooting, and the Hurricane made it really good. Hawkeye makes it insane. And you've just got these overlapping buffs between the two big guys. And just, you're just getting these Pistoliers just literally going off the hook with all these shooting. The Patrician Helm is basically helping their one downside, which is their bravery. You've got quite big blocks of Pistoliers there. You don't want them dying to bravery if you can. So again, it's a big base general. So you can cover quite easily 2 of those units with the bubble of battle shock immunity. So he is basically almost the nucleus, which a lot of these Pistoliers kind of rove around the board, just deleting things. Have we covered what Hawkeye does, by the way? Yeah.
We've kind of got, just in case we've forgotten, add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by friendly missile weapons by a friendly Tempest Eye unit that's wholly within 12 of the general. So the general, your Griffin, is acting as this beacon of getting +1 to wound, only for shooting attacks. So I imagine that we're going to be hugging the general with all of our Pistoliers. 1, creating a screen, 2, maximizing the amount of people are going to get +1 to wound, and hopefully getting +1 attack from that Hurricane. So it's a +1 hit from the Hurricane.
Yeah, so basically, if you're playing it right, those Free Guild Pistoliers are +1/+1. And obviously it's with missile weapons, and the missile weapons they can shoot in the charge phase, so their combat is inadvertently buffed as well. So you can just delete things with foul. Yeah, in a perfect world, each one of those Pistoliers is getting 8 dice every turn. Yeah. So 2 shots in the shooting phase, 2 shots in the charge phase, 2 attacks in the combat phase from the guy on top, and 2 horse attacks as well. So every single one of those 55 models is potentially getting 8 dice. You can, I don't know what 8 times 55 is, but that's a lot of dice if you can.
Maths.
Yeah, exactly. You can do it a lot. It is the stereotypical death by 1,000 cut lists if you can play it right. And this is what I would take to a tournament at the moment with Tempest Eye.
I am curious on your artifact selection, because if this was my list, and it's not, But if it was, I certainly wouldn't have chosen the Patrician Helm. I would have chosen the Zephyrite Banner. So for me, the Zephyrite Banner allows you to reroll charge rolls for Tempest Eye within 12. So again, always like guaranteeing the Pistol Ears
Pistol Ears reroll charges anyway. That's just their ability.
Yeah, good call. Good call. Yeah, good call.
Yeah, but that is, it's not even a command. It's not even I think, is it the musician?
I've been running it. I've been using the banner with my Drakespawn Knights, which is why I've been thinking about it a lot. But that makes now complete sense. Yes, ignore me. Keep me with my Drakespawn Knights rerolling charges because they've only got a base 10-inch move. But the Patrician Helm is going to let you ignore Battle Shock with the Holy Within 12 of the bearer. So
Pistol Ears basically have Reckless Riders when they can reroll run and charge rolls just off the bat. So
that's pretty tasty. Yeah. And you can't reroll a reroll.
You can't reroll. No, they get +1 a charge as well. And I must admit, the thing that I didn't anticipate using a lot until I ended up playing with it was the Free Guild General's command ability.
Hold the line. No, hold the line.
Rousing Battle Cry.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, because basically you can pick one friendly Free Guild hero, which is obviously always going to be him. And until the end of the phase, add 1 to the charge rolls for friendly field guild units while they're within 12 inches. So suddenly they're getting +2 because their trumpeter gives them +1 anyway. So they're +2 with rerolls now, just with a command point. And they also get +1 to hit for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly field guild units that are within 12 inches. And a lot of the time, the +1 to hit that they got off of that, and then comboed with the Hurricane's +1 to hit. Yes, it's only 4 attacks, no rend or anything. But suddenly, 4 of those attacks in combat were hitting on 2s. And there was a lot of them. So you were finding that I was actually doing quite a decent amount of damage in combat against certain kind of targets because you were just rolling so many dice and they were hitting on 2s.
And we've obviously talking about the fact that Pistol Ears shoot as they charge into combat. So you're almost getting 2 additional attacks. You're basically getting your shooting attacks and then you're getting the actual combat attacks. So you can always finish off that unit.
So these are the combat. Yeah, exactly. So after your 2 Ren 2 shots and your 2 Ren 2 charging shots, I was finding I was ending up with like 4 mundane attacks in combat, which were hitting on 2s anyway and finishing off units. So it's actually really kind of relevant that his command ability is what it is. It's actually throwing out quite a lot of extra damage, which people aren't really expecting.
No, because you're all about shooting. Friend of the channel, Deanock, has made a good point / good question. Basically, you've got a lot of large units here. You've got 15, 10, and they've got cavalry bases, or whether it's 60 by 30s or whatever it is. Do you find it hard to keep within those aura buffs, like being wholly within 12 to take advantage of, say, the Patrician's Helm or the Hurricane's +1 to hit?
Kind of, but it depends on what's happening with. They don't have to be within the 10 Pistol Ears is more than enough to take on 10 chaff in any other army usually, and you're sometimes finding you're doing it in waves. So you're kind of going in with the 15 and the 10 and the 10 and the other 2 10s are kind of hanging around the back, claiming objectives, whatever. And then as the game kind of goes on, those other Pistol Ears, they kind of surge forwards and then they kind of come in with the rest of the same buffs that the other 35 had, but as a second wave. I was finding that just because they didn't all get it, they usually all had it at some point. There was never a time that all 55 were running around with +1 to hit, +1 to wound. But you throw 15 in, then the counter charge would come in and kill 15, and you'd go, right, cool. Now here's another 10 doing the same, and another 10 doing the same, and then the game's over and you're dead. It's that kind of thing.
So people in the chat are calling me out for saying the Pistol Ears have big bases. In context of like a 25 mil base, yes, it's a bit bigger. But yes, they're not huge, not Demigriff Knight bases, but just something to keep in mind because wholly within 12 is only a small radius. It's not 18. Yeah. So yes, trying to put all of those Pistol Ears within a 12 inches is probably near impossible. But something to keep in mind. I think you've called out a really good point about waves and just making sure your general is kind of supporting as you're building those waves. Mind you, the seer stone amulet, which is the other artifact choice, is not a bad one for something like this as well, getting on a 4+ an additional command point. And if you are CP hungry, you could tap into the what's the spell? It's called Celestial Visions to get an extra command point. So there's an easy way to get a whole bunch of command points in this army.
Exactly. And someone made a good point in the chat as well about taking Outriders, because the Outriders do go in that battalion as well. And it is, and I have used it, and I've even got them built and painted. You can very easily take 10 free guild out and just swap them for 2 5s of Outriders, which is perfectly valid. I mean, I quite like them. The only reason I didn't use them in the end was because they couldn't hit for toffee, and because they were always the unit that got left behind without the buffs. They were, sat there hitting on 5s, which they didn't really do a lot. But the retreating from combat thing was quite nice as well. You could use them as bait. You could use them as screens. Like early, if you're not going first, you could just use them as screens and then retreat out of combat and still be doing some shooting and stuff. But yeah, just an FYI, 10 free guild for 2 × 5 Outriders is perfectly good as well.
Yeah, and I have seen some variants where they've gone the Outriders, because the Outriders do bring something a little bit different to the table. You've got the Knight of Zeros, which we know is going to give +1, reroll 1s to hit when enemies are within their aura. You've got that once per game battle, like the Lantern, that can do D3 or D6 mortal wounds, depending if you're Chaos or not. It flies, so it's a fast-moving unit that can kind of keep up with the Epistle Ears and the moving force. Is there anything else that the Knight of Zeros brings to the table?
It is just actually another hero. I did feel that I needed another hero. 2 wasn't quite enough, especially when they needed to be more where the units were that were doing damage. So if you had, say, hero-based missions, you'd want something a little bit cheaper that could be left behind, guarding objectives if need be. The fact that it's quite tanky because it's a Stormcast just helps. But the reroll ones, as you say, that's its primary role. But its secondary role was being a cheap character for character missions.
What's great is that this list is a 3-drop because you got the battalion, right? Everything's kind of basically going to be wrapped up in the battalion outside of the Azeros and the Hurricanum. And what's really cool, and Hayden's kind of called out in the chat as well, that, this is a way that you could also bring those gun haulers, those KO gun haulers into the battalion, and not have to worry about those drops too, because you can have 0 to 2 gunstock gun haulers into this list as well. So if you want to bring that KO and the fly high stuff, you can't do the Ironclads, but you can do the gun haulers.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that really annoyed me, the first thing I'm going to check come the new handbook is to see if the Free Guild General or the Hurricanum go down by 20 points. Because if they do, this list because the cogs, which we haven't mentioned yet, the cogs are nice, but you're so fast anyway. They're not actually that key. They're not 100%. A lot of the time I was thinking I could probably drop it for a command point and a triumph bid. I'm not really going to miss them that much. But you can drop 10 free guild and the cogs, you get to 280. If you can find another 20 points, you've got 300 for 2 gun haulers. And that list would be then perfect.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I played a list kind of like this, but I didn't take the Wind Riders, and my internal struggles, despite owning 3 free guild generals on Griffin, literally next to me in my cabinet, I went with the Frost Heart Phoenix, and the reason for it is currently as it stands, they're the same points. I get the -1 to hit aura. It's just more durable and tanky to take on the buffs. It kind of synergizes well with the Hurricane of giving it +1 to wound. Sorry, +1 save if it's within the aura. But you're right. Like, I think the Griffin needs to go down a little bit, but that's a conversation for the future. That's a Games Workshop conversation.
Yeah. I think you're right though. If you weren't taking the battalion. And to be fair, I will state that the battalion is actually really good. But if you weren't taking the battalion, I wouldn't be taking the Free Guild General.
Yes, yeah. I think for the same points, you've got the Anointed on Frost Phoenix, or you've got the Dreadlord on Black Dragon. Both probably much stronger beat sticks or detractors than the Griffin.
But the thing it comes down to is that battalion is just so good for what you're trying to do, because it allows you to retreat and still shoot, or retreat and still charge. So you're always keeping those Pistol Ears mobile and shooting and doing what they do, not getting bogged down in combat unless they absolutely have to.
How do you take advantage of the battalion? Because so for the battalion, you get to retreat and still shoot. Is that correct?
Yeah, you get to retreat, shoot, and or charge. Well, it says and or charge, so both basically. So you're just getting your 4 pistol shots every turn into a target that you probably want to be shooting, rather than the thing that you're in combat with and forced to shoot. It
allows you to kind of charge in, shoot, and then next turn you retreat out and then go in again, go for that shoot.
Exactly.
Even if you just charge the exact same unit you're just fighting, it just allows you to double tap into the shooting.
Exactly. Yeah. At the very least, it's giving you 2 shots per guy left alive again. Yeah, at the very least. But more likely,
damage, right?
Yeah, more damage. But realistically, it's you find you're coming out of combat and then maybe going around and then still charging the same unit, but charging the same unit and making sure that there's more of your models in range of the objective. And you're playing this kind of whittling game. It is literally death by 1,000 cuts, but you have to make sure that you are apportioning your damage at the correct places of the enemy battle line. You can't just kind of hit it across the line and just go, cool, well, I'm going to win an attrition battle, because you won't. They're not that tanky. They're not bad in the first turn, but it's not a tanky army by any stretch of the imagination. So you have to use your numbers in the places that they will do the most damage.
Do you find with these big blocks of Pistol Ears, and Free Guild generally have low bravery, do you find that these guys are a big risk of being battle shocked off?
Yep, which is why the Patrician Helm is a thing. Yeah.
So you really got to think about positioning where your general is to. Yeah,
exactly. And the command points are usually saved for. And again, this is why I was not massively married to the idea of having the cogs. The cogs were nice, but sometimes I wasn't even casting them because I didn't need the extra movement because they were already so fast. So having another command point in the bank and having a Triumph, which sometimes can be a battle shock immune kind of one shot as well, just I could see the argument for taking no cogs and being 80 points under for the command point to do pretty much the same thing. Just ignore the battle shock.
Yeah, no, interesting point. Interesting. And again, the beautiful thing about these list discussions that I've been having with people like Gary is that there is no one way to build an army. And, if you want to build an elf version of this or a Dwarden version of Tempest Eye, go do it. And, there's a lot of cool ways you can go and build around, whatever your favorite model or whatever your favorite strategy is. We're not showing off my list, but currently one of my builds is, having the Dreadlord on Black Dragon. He's a combat beatstick supported by two Drakespawn Knights. Again, they're combat. There's certainly no shooting. But I'm tapping into that high movement, high combat, and going in for more of a fast damage dealing in combat as opposed to the shooting and kind of manipulating the board. There's just a lot of different ways you can do this. So one of the many examples.
Yeah. We'll probably see one of these in a minute, I'm guessing.
Well, the last and final list that you've sent to me is, so you've got the Hurricanum, Thermal Rider Cloak, Strike of Eagles. Cool, we've acknowledged that. By the way, I'll tell you right, for me, I've talked about my combat version of this. I've been putting on my Hurricanum the Aura of Glory, which basically gives me +1 attack characteristics to melee weapons for Tempest Eye within 12. So when I get my Dreadlord on Black Dragon and my Drakespawn Knights going in for the charge, when they charge, they get rend -2 for 2 damage, which is pretty sexy. The Dreadlord on Black Dragon's command trait kind of synergizes really well with the Drakespawn. And the bite attack from the Dreadlord, when I give it an extra attack, I got, I think, 2 chances, or there's a couple of chances, and it does D6 damage. So again, just proof that it doesn't have to be a shooting only army. So, but choose your own adventure.
Yeah, exactly. I'm surprised you've got this one as well, because this is just a tweak to the previous one. It's the tweak that I mentioned, in fact.
Well, here's another one. Here's another one.
This is the one I like.
All right. You sent me like 5 lists, Gary. You sent me 5 lists. All right. Well, the last list is that we talked about is the Hurricanum. Again, insert Thermal Rider Cloak, Strike of Eagles. We've got a Battle Mage. You didn't tell me which Battle Mage it is.
Gur.
Gur?
Gur, yeah.
What does Gur bring to the table?
+2 charge, because I got whacking great big unit of hammerers.
We've also got 2 Rune Lords. We've got a Warden King, which is the general with Hawkeye, 30 Hammerers, 10 Longbeards with the ancestral weapons and shields, who are also your honored retinue. You've got 30 Iron Drakes, 3 Gyrocopters, 1 Grundstock Gun Hauler, and then Soul Scream Bridge. So let's go to the top. Hurricanum, we know what it does. Close that out. Battle Mage, you've told us from Gur, giving us some extra movement. What next? What else do I do? What do I need to know about the Battle Mage and the Rune Lords?
Right, the Battle Mage is Gur, obviously, so it's allowing you're doing the whole kind of. It's basically very similar to the Hallow Heart list that was doing the rounds, but it's the Tempest Eye version with dwarves. So you got the Gur Mage to do the charging, and it's obviously the Hallow Heart did more shooting, magic superiority in shooting. This has got a strong combat element to it. So Gur Battle Mage combined with the Hammerers, we get +1 to charge anyway because of their command model. So +3 to charge. Teleported by the bridge, and off you go. Warden King gives them extra attacks. Yeah, it's just a combined arms teleporting army, and the Battle Mage just lets those charges go off quite regularly. The Rune Lords are basically giving extra rend to the Hammerers, so you can give, and there's nothing stopping that stacking at the moment, so you can get those Hammerers with +2 to rend on top of their already +1, so they're -3 rend. So -3 rend, +1 attack, +3 to charge. Warden King is just a buff piece. Again, his innate command ability is given those units +1 attack. He picks a unit, and it's not even like a unit of your stuff. It's a unit of the enemy stuff. You pick a unit, and anyone that attacks that in the combat phase is +1 attack. So he's both combat, and he's also got Hawkeye for the shooting kind of element as well. So your character package is basically buff. It's all buff character package. The Rune Lords, obviously in this day and age as well, have also got a great secondary role, which is that they're really good at dispelling. They have got an innate dispelling kind of thing. So again, we're talking about magic superiority being a thing nowadays. So again, if you're going first or even second, and you can get up the table, you've got 2 very reliable dispels and 2 other normal dispels. So you've got 4 dispels to try and shut down these magic superiority lists with quite a good chance as well.
Or another way to do it is you could always use the Rune Lord to unbind the Soul Scream Bridge and then recast it with your Hurricanum or your Battle Mage.
Yeah.
So I was doing that with like my Everblaze Comet, but when I was playing my Hallow Heart Everblaze Comet list, I would cast that with the Knight Incantor, and then the next battle round I could unbind it with the Anointed. If I wanted to get, I wanted, basic, and then I could recast it without sacrificing an unbind. Or a dispel from my Battle Mage, my Hurricanum. So you could then kind of almost do a second wave of teleporting using the Soul Scream Bridge.
Exactly. The Warden King's also got a nice ability where he's got the Oath Stone as well, so you don't even have to build in the kind of battle shock immunity kind of or command points. You can just it just comes with the Warden King. He just doesn't move, and suddenly everyone, and 18 inches. It's a massive bubble.
It's the same as the Anointed with my Phoenix Guard. The Phoenix Guard and the Anointed are a nice little synergy, because if you are wholly within 18 of the Anointed, they're immune to battle shock. So again, if you're looking for CP, or if you're looking for ways to kind of keep your traditional troops alive, you're right. The Warden King and the Anointed could be nice little ways to kind of just basically have like a bunch of bodies that sit on an objective and not have to worry about being battle shocked off.
Exactly. Yeah, it's great. And because it's based upon his movement, which he doesn't move because you're being teleported by the Soul Scream Bridge, sorry. So yeah, he can't move in a turn that he does this. It's fine. I'm being teleported. We're good. So we get the synergy there. Yeah, but the Rune Lords even have like another ability as well, which lets them give units a 6-up hard save, like a damage prevention roll, which again can stack. So you can make things quite tanky if you really, really need to. You can put them into the long beards or hammers in these grindy combats where all you want to do is just play delaying actions. So it's a buff package of 5 heroes that are okay in their own right, but they're really making the rest of the list work.
And the Duarden or the formerly the Dispossessed, they synergize really well with each other. Unlike the old armies like the Empire and the High Elves and the Dark Elves, those armies got basically split up into like 3 or 4 different armies, while the Duarden really only got split up into 2, them, the Dispossessed, and the Ironwood Arsenal. So I find that if you start building around the Duarden, you've got a lot more inherent synergy. So I can see, the Rune Lord, the Warden King, the Hammers, the Longbeards, the Iron Drakes, they all kind of combine really well. You can do some very cool shenanigans there. And we know, teleporting Iron Drakes, the damage that those guys do, especially when they didn't move, they're just being set up, taking up the board.
Double shots. Longbeards can give them reroll one. You got the Hawkeye, you got the Longbeard grumbling rule to throw in as well.
The torpedo in there as well. The hero. Yeah,
exactly. So all these things. I mean, the Longbeards again, they're basically the best screen you can get in this kind of list because they're tanky screens, but they're just giving out these kind of buffs as well, almost as a second thought to the Iron Drakes and the Hammerers and the Gyrocopters if you need them. They can even dispel the Endless Spell in a pinch as well. So if you really want your Battle Mage and your Hurricaneum to be casting genuine spells rather than trying to dispel the Soul Screen Bridge, you can just have a poke at dispelling the bridge as well with your Longbeards. So you don't have to waste a cast. Let's say Iron Drake's just good. Gyrocopters is what I was talking about earlier as well. They don't even have to be teleported by the bridge. They could be your roving objective claimers. You can throw the command point on them as well sometimes so they can run and shoot and just kind of really get up into units' grills and do untold damage.
And that's from the spray. So I know the Gyrocopters feature really heavily in Anvil Guard because you've got the Vitriolic spray that can then, you basically reduce someone's armor to like nothing, and then the Gyrocopter does all its damage based off, was it the armor profile or you roll a dice? I can't remember exactly how the Gyrocopter damage works.
It's the number of hits is equal to the number of models that are within 8 inches. So the better you move, the more you can get within 8, therefore the more shots you're going to get. But after you've worked out the number of shots you've got, it's 3s to hit, 4s to wound, rend 1. So it's rends perfectly fine already. But you can buff it with the Rune Lord to rend 3, which for most things in the game becomes basically no armor save anyway. So it's very much the Anvil Guard kind of trick, but just in a different way of doing it. And you could literally make them -3 and just annihilate units, like disappear, like almost to the point there's no point rolling the dice because if you're hitting 20 models 3 times, that's 60 hits, 40 get through, 20 will probably wound, and then you get no armor save. Right, that's it. That's 20 clan rats just dead.
I know I haven't run the Gyrocopters, and it does break my heart to say that my armies are becoming more elf. It's killing me because killing my hobby dollars because I'm converting everything to be free guild, even though it has elf on the war scroll. But instead of using that, I've been tapping into the Scourge Runner chariots, and they're 60 points a pop, or you can get 3 for 180. And they kind of form my harassment unit. They are super quick already. They can do some serious damage from a shooting point of view as well. So again, if you want to go the elf version or the Duarden, if you want to go, like, depending on which way you want to go, there are so many different ways you can kind of tap into this and get into the goodness of the +1 armor save, +1 shooting in the first, so +3 movement, +1 armor save in the first battle round, as well as things like the shooting benefits like Hawkeye or, the combat stuff that I've talked about. So regardless, you've got 2 people here talking about 2 completely different things, yet we're in love with Tempest Eye. Question from the chat, and it kind of is a very good one as well. If if in the future, because General's Handbook's coming around, we don't know what's going to happen with, malign sorcery. We don't know what happens with, forbidden power and endless spells and all this stuff. And maybe it becomes really expensive. But let's say hypothetically, Soulscream Bridge disappears, whether it's no longer available, whether its points are just too not worth the bringing to the table. Do you think that your army or anyone building around Soulscream Bridge, does that impact the strategy of what you just talked about?
I don't think it does, unless it goes up by a lot. I mean, there's still spare points, I think, in that list. I still think it'll be viable. But yes, if it disappeared, then that list would have to have some kind of elements looked at. But I don't think it would necessarily be bad. It'll be a slow burn rather than a kind of turn one kind of, by the way, there's 1,500 points worth of dwarfs, just deal with it. It'd be kind of you have to play it more mundane, but again, not bad.
You lose the alpha strike and you lose the ability to kind of tap into some of those setup, if the unit doesn't move, benefits. But I would not say that any of the lists that you've shown so far with Soulscream Breach would just collapse. But you may find things like Shadow Warriors become more important because they give you the alpha strike. You might find other ways to, like the Gunhauler Fly High might be more important.
I mean, you'd probably lay off the hammerers a little bit, because suddenly 30 getting in is not a reliable thing. It's like 20 is nice just to have a combat threat rather than a kind of knockout punch. So then those points get spent somewhere else. You drop the bridge, suddenly you're looking at 200 something points maybe, and then suddenly you take a second Gunhauler and you're playing that kind of solid core with harassing units. It'll modify, no doubt, but I don't think it would be dead.
And I think that's the benefit, right? If in the future the meta changes, we don't know what the Lumineth's going to bring to the table. We don't know what Gargan's bringing to the table. We don't know what's being released after that. We don't know what the General's Handbook's bringing. The wonderful thing about cities, and I keep talking about this in the cities shows, is that there's so much variety between the Stormcast book, 1 in 4. Tempest Eye brings us 1 in 4 KO. We've obviously got all the deep ally pools. We've got our own book, which is probably the second largest book outside of Stormcast. We've got loads to choose from. You can adapt with the meta, whether there's an endless spell or there's no endless spells, whether the points increase on the Frostheart Phoenix, cool, I'll go find the Flames Fire Phoenix, or I'll do something with the Dreadlord, or I can change the army style pretty instantly compared to something like Iron Jaws, which is pretty restrictive.
Well, I mean, that list, just this is all hypothetical, but again, that list, if you're not married to the idea of it being Tempest Eye, and suddenly Soulscream Bridge, for whatever reason, disappears, and it isn't something, you can just throw that list almost completely over to Living City, and it's perfectly fine. You probably drop the hammerers and probably take Dracoths. That would be my preference. Or something like that. Something that can come on from the side, shoot, take the command ability, and you've talked about Living City, haven't you?
Yeah, like where I had Rocco talking about it. I know he's in love with the formulators where because the beautiful thing with Living City is that you get a free move if it shoots, and you don't have to do any big damage with it. So you can kind of just come on the side of the board, find something that shoots, whether it's prosecutors, whether it's your Sisters of the Thorn, whether it's like there's so much, and then get a free move and then get into combat. So
but it could even be those Iron Drakes, because if they come on from the side, it's not a move. It's
correct.
Being set up, so you get a shoot, and then you still get to move after you've done your double shot. So they can even creep onto objectives. So that model. I've looked at this, because as you say, we don't know what's happening, and it could be big changes. I've made sure that I'm painting that list at the moment, and I made sure I didn't end up painting it for just one little change to make it irrelevant.
And by the way, I'm not leading to the fact that I know something you don't know and Soulscream Bridge is not coming, but it's always good to think about the meta. And I think the wonderful thing is that we can adapt to the meta. And whether Soulscream Bridge is not around, whether we've got the Boatman and maybe we rethink of the strategy, or even if the Soulscream Bridge didn't disappear, it is going to get harder and harder and harder to cast with things like Lord Crowe dominating the table right now. Zench is, got some really strong magic casting. Teclis is probably going to not allow you to cast a spell. So your reliance on magic and being able to do what you do is going to get harder, I think, when the tournaments recommence. That's a fact.
Agreed. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm looking at my armies going, how do I remove as much magic as possible? Or how do I guarantee it? So do I go Hallow Heart and try to find these sorceress buffs with +2 to cast? Am I thinking about making sure that I'm sitting outside of unbind ranges? And that's not to assume that people don't unbind table wide. So I think having this one approach to your army is going to be harder and harder when we resume.
Exactly. I mean, that's the other thing. Yeah, that list literally, without any changes, would go into Hallowheart, and it would be perfectly viable. You'd just be kind of changing your spells, and items a little bit, and that would be the end of it. If you were really kind of married to the idea of wanting to, because I've converted my entire army to make made out of dwarves, even the Hurricanum and everything. So
yeah. And I'm literally doing everything. I've turned my army, despite it being elves, as humans. So my Phoenix Guard are all converted to be humans. Bringing great sword heads and all this stuff to kind of make it more free guild. And that's the beautiful thing about this book is you can kind of put your flavor to an army.
Yeah, exactly.
To bring us home, I've got two primary questions I want to close the show out with. One is, how do you win games with Tempest Eye? So on average, high level, regardless of the opponent, regardless of the scenario, what are the general things that you're doing to win the game?
Movement and unrelenting pressure. There's so many things you could do that they can't cover the base, stopping you doing all of them all the time. There's always going to be cracks that you can use your superior movement to exploit. And you can always have the safety net of turn one being very much in your favor and dictating the tempo of the game, be that putting them on the back foot or blunting their first turn kind of shenanigans. That is basically how the army works.
I know the thing that I've enjoyed the most with Temp, well, not the most, but it's been really enjoyable, is that there's been a few armies that, and I keep posing this question to people, how will you handle your army if a Stonehorn or a Maw Crusher turn one charges you before you put up your buffs? And I've seen a few, and this is where some armies like Grey Water will collapse because they just don't have the bodies and yes, you can do this crazy output of shooting at a long range, but you can't take a hit. The beautiful thing with Tempest Eye is with the +1 armor save, that is regardless if you've taken the first turn or not. So you can take a hit a little better than any other build.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can just, all depending on the build, you could just get out and then just play the range game, or you can, with the Ironclad, maybe you can make a -2 to hit and then just sit there and just kind of go play the objective game while they're just flailing wildly at -2 to hit Ironclads.
Yeah.
There's always options. You've got enough tools, and I think of all the mini allegiances in the book, you've got the most tools. I mean, Hallowheart's maybe got the best tools.
I think Living Cities. I think Living Cities is the one that keeps going under the radar, but there's that and Tempest Eye, I think, some of the best.
There's so many, as I say, there's so many things you can do. It's just insane. So you play someone who's not played it before, and they can go, oh, well, you're fast, and you can go there, and you can go there, and then you go, yeah, and I can also do this, and this, and this, and this. And then like the next turn, they're like, oh, hang on a minute, It's always fun telling them what you could do. You go, oh, by the way, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, this, and this, and then just watch them scratch their head for 5 minutes while they're kind of working out, how am I going to stop them doing one of these 17 different things and being anywhere on the table whenever you want?
Yeah, I've had the most fun with Tempest Eye, to be honest. As much as I enjoy Magic with Hallowheart, it just solely relies too much on the getting that plus to cast, and then just I mean, there's some other ways to build around it. Magical supremacy is fun, but board manipulation and moving around and just like dictating the terms of battle. I feel like it's very Deepkin, kind of almost like you're playing with a whole bunch of you're playing with pseudo eels here. Running around with all your eels and doing some shenanigans.
I'll tell you a little trick. It's a KO trick. You won't like this, but it's
no. Hot take, right. People, get your notepads out.
No, you won't like it. But if you've got boats which can fly high and then land 9 inches away, make a big point of telling them that they can do this. Just by the way, did you know my boat can be anywhere on the table 9 inches away at any point because I've got this rule? And they're like, oh, cool, right, thanks very much. And as they're deploying, you just walk around their table with a 9-inch ruler going, you're going to put it there? Okay, cool. And then just yeah.
All right. I'll be honest. I do that with Shadow Warriors a few times. Like I'll do Shadow Warriors and I'll come down with I've got like, I don't know, 6 or 8 little like 9-inch gauges. I'll come down and I'll just drop them around and just be annoying. And I might not have any reason to do it. I just want to get in their heads. But
yeah, right. You just get loads of the little 9-inch little rulers and just keep popping them around all the table, just going, okay. Yeah.
You just measure like Oh, this is too fun. All right, final question. I know you got bedtime and I want to eat some breakfast. What have you learnt by playing this army that might not be as obvious on the table compared to being in the book? Like if I'm just reading the book for the first time, what might I miss, or what might what have you learned from your experience? Basically, is what I want to know.
What I mentioned earlier, which is the Epistle Ears. The Epistle Ears are good on paper, and then when you look at it and you play with it, you're like, actually, they're almost twice as good as you thought they were. Yeah. They're like, oh, I can shoot and I can pistol. Cool, that's kind of cool. And then they get into combat and then they die, and then suddenly you play the list and you're like, oh, actually, no, I don't die. I shoot and then I shoot again, and then I hose them with another 4 attacks hitting on 2s, and then they're all dead. It is an echelon above the damage that you thought you were looking at on paper when you put it in real world kind of experience. If you're careful, those Epistle Ears can, as I say, 8 dice each, most of them hitting on 2s, every turn. The granular damage that the Epistle Ears can put out is actually obscene if you think about it. And against certain, I tabled a Nighthaunt list in 2 turns with their 4 up ethereal. I know Nighthaunt aren't amazing, but when you think about it, it's like, oh, right, you've just got dice for days if you need it.
I have struggled though. Like, mind you, I didn't go completely full in my build with the Epistle Ears like you did. But I know when I had my buffed up unit of 10 Epistle Ears and they ran into a bunch of Mortek Guard, they did a whole lot of nothing. The rend -1 just wasn't enough to kind of cut through OBR's Petrifix Elite. So maybe that was me playing it wrong, or maybe I just didn't. Maybe I didn't have as much damage like you did, because I certainly didn't have the 50-odd Epistle Ears. So the weight of dice would have probably worked in my favor. But at least they don't get to put up their shield wall. So you're kind of bringing them down to a 4+ armor save. So you need a lot of that.
Yeah, exactly. So and it's just one thing. There's always going to be bad matchups for certain armies, and there's always going to be certain things that you have to play differently, and that might be one of those matchups where you have to play more cagey and more objective control. But against
sadly at that tournament I played 2 Petrifix Elite OBR lists. They were like, can you give me a better matchup?
Yeah, exactly. But
all right, Gary, I know it's like almost midnight for you, and I think your daughter or your wife's running behind the scenes. Yeah. So is there anything you want to kind of bring us home with? Any final comments? If people want to chat to you more, where can they find you?
Best place to find me is usually on WhatsApp, on the WhatsApp chats. I don't tend to be on Twitter anymore at the moment, but WhatsApp.
I have noticed that.
Yeah, no, just the world as it is at the moment. I'm staying away from the media. So I'm keeping to my little hobby niches on WhatsApp. So it was, if it's cities specifically, I'm on the cities WhatsApp chat. You can always PM me, not a problem. I need to use that more. I'm useless when it comes to. I know. Please, I'm all about Discord now, man. Discord's all where it's happening. Gary, thank you very much. If you guys have enjoyed this show, as always, comment, like, subscribe, smash the like button, all that stuff. And leave comments as well. Let me know how your Tempest Eye list are building, what synergies that you're finding. I think, again, Cities of Sigmar are so deep that, we've just scratched the surface. There's probably a million builds we can kind of tap into if we went harder on the Stormcast, or if we looked at some of the other varieties of Kharadron Overlords, or even brought in some allies. Like, what does Tempest Eye look like with a Gotrek? There's just so much going on that that's the beautiful thing about this book, is it's just going to continue to evolve, and you can stay here as long as you want. Gary, God damn it, you are a legend. Thank you again for being on the show. Have a great night, folks, and I hope you enjoyed. See you guys.